Well, we're in our last week, we're nearly there. So I just want to encourage you as we go into it. What I'll do is I'll do the Friday test and give you that, so that will get the last points of the 75 points that's allocated to you from the standpoint of the internal exams of what we're doing on a week by week basis, and then the final exam for 25 points. What I'll do is I'll give it to you on Friday also, and you can have the weekend for that, so make sure that it's sent to me by Monday morning. This last chapter we're looking at, chapter 18, is really quite straightforward, except for I just reiterate what Mount says, which is when you think of the word deponent, and you can explore it, look it up if you want, and take it further, but just think of it in really simple terms, in terms of that it's a passive form, but it's active in meaning, as in contrast to a passive form that you'll get, for example, from luo, luomai, and so on, which is actually passive in meaning, but not with the erkomai and verbs like that. And you'll recognize them, as Mao says himself. You'll see them in the way that they're listed in the lexicon and so forth. So that's the main thing there. What I really wanted to do, just for a couple of minutes, and I will try for the first time to make it the 3-minute helper, is just to give you just a real, very quick overview of the main English notions of what we talk about verbs. And that basically is tense, mood, and voice. When we're talking about tense, we're talking about the kind of action that's going on with the verb. In other words, then, is it present tense, or you can look at it in the sense of present continuous, like in a straight line. He is continuing to do this, or is it punctilia? He does this at a particular point in time, or is it looking at it from a standpoint of it happened in the past? Did it happen in the past continually? He was doing this and it continues, or was it a singular point in time in the past? He did this, not he does it, but he did it. Or is it action in the past but is passive? In other words, it was something that was done to him. Okay, well, you've still got the tense there in terms of a past tense. Well, it could be what's known as either perfect or pluperfect, in the sense of some action that occurred in the past and its effects are actually being felt in the present. So it's sort of like a dot and then a continuous line. So there's a notion of tense. Think of it like that, the kind of action that's used. The idea of voice is simply the person who's the subject, who's being expressed. In other words, is the voice, is it a active voice, so that the subject is doing the action, or is it a passive voice in which the person, the verb is, the person is being acted on by the verb? In other words, it's not that he is loosing, he is loosed. In other words, then he is acted upon from that standpoint and is not the activator. So there's you've got the active, and then you've got the passive, and then you've got the middle, which Mount says let's just leave that for a while. I always think primarily the middle, in terms of the subject has got a very great deal of intimacy within the action of the verb itself, and frequently I think of it in a reflexive sense. You know, he undid the coat himself. He's intimately involved in doing what he's doing. In other words, or she is doing, and so forth. So you can see it from that standpoint. So there are 3 elements that I'm giving you in respect to the verb. The last one, of course, is mood. Mood is the notion of well, mood or mode. Sometimes it's referred to. Mood. How do I explain that? It's a way of expressing what kind of action it is in terms of what the verb does. So the mood is it indicative mood? Indicative mean it's making a statement. It's indicating something. This is what is happening, etc., etc. It's indicative. Or is the mood something that is less certain and is cast into the future? If something is into the future and is certain, then it's in the indicative mood. But if it's doubtful, a doubtful assertion, it may be that, etc., etc., then that notion, which you'll come across as we do the next course, and I don't want to frighten you in respect to that, because I want you to have a good Christmas first, is is subjective, which is basically a mood of doubtful assertion or sort of compatibility by expectation of circumstances and so forth. So you can look at it, and likewise the imperative is that way too, because there's an element of doubt in the imperative of giving a command. Do this, etc. Will it occur? Will it not occur? It's not indicative that it's happening. In other words, it's a statement. It's an affirmation in respect to the future. So there's just there's other elements too in terms of mood. But what I've given you is what is tense, voice, and mood. So when you come across those terms, separate them in your mind, because it's going to help you as we do the rest of the verbal structure next term. Okay. All right. Thanks.